one, and it's not going to be related to climate as such. It's more going to be what's coming up in the next few weeks. Um, I think we're going to go through a little bit of a wet spell for most of the country. So let's get started, and we'll look at JMA first. This is a 28-day forecast from JMA, which is one that I like to use. It's very good climate-wise in the short term. Looking at the rainfall forecast for the next 4 weeks, which is this one here, you can see that the blue shading indicates well above average rainfall for most of the east coast of Australia. And that's interesting because most of the rain that we've been experiencing in the last month has been coming from this section here, which is the northwest coast of Australia, due to the negative Indian Ocean dipole that I've been speaking about for the last couple of months, feeding in moisture from that area. But there's been a significant development in the last couple of weeks where the climate has started to shift, and we're starting to see more La Nina type tendencies in our weather, which means more rain towards the east coast of Australia. As far as the other graphs go, the 500 temperatures are cooler than normal. The heights, sea surface temperatures. What an interesting development we've got here. In the next 4 weeks, JMA is putting a fair bit of cooling, especially at about 140 west on the equator, which really enhances a theory of mine that the La Nina is starting to develop. So that's also an interesting development there. Sea level pressures are mostly going to be lower than normal for 3/4 of the country. Now this is significant. This is what I like to see here. This higher than usual anomaly just under Tasmania indicates that the high pressure systems are much lower than normal at this time of year. Normally the pressures would be a lot lower through this region because you'd have cold fronts usually going through this area, and the highs would be well up through Central Australia, but they're not. Another sign that La Nina is developing. When the highs are down here under Australia, under the mainland, you tend to get a lot of infeeds of rainfall from this region here in Queensland, and also this region here, which is what we've been having in the last couple of weeks. So this is another good sign, and it's all coming together to suggest that La Nina is definitely developing in the coming months. So we need to keep an eye on that. If you look at this week's weather, this is GFS for the next 14 days, and I'm starting to think that we could start to see a very big flood situation develop along the east coast of Australia. More so not Victoria as such anymore, and the reason for that is quite simple. The blocking that was going to occur out here in the Tasman Sea probably isn't going to occur because the pattern's quite mobile at the moment. So most of the lows are going to be pretty swiftly moving through rather than being blocked and parking itself over our region and giving us some good rainfall. So if you look at the next 14 days, rainfall GFS is putting some really big rainfall. You're looking at 8 inches anywhere between Sydney, up to the Queensland coast. So again, it's looking like, and again, this is coming in from this area here. Moisture is being dragged down from this convergence zone near the Solomon Islands, just pouring into the east coast of Australia. And funnily enough, GFS has got a bit of an east coast trough situation developing, which is lifting all this moisture, providing all this rainfall. You can see here there's some really good falls through the interior of New South Wales. So this is a really good development, and again, in 2 weeks' time, it's looking like we're going to start to see another infeed down through Western Australia here. So it looks like we're going to get the negative Indian Ocean dipole feeding in rain from the Western Australian area, which it has been doing, but we're also now looking at good east coast rainfall coming in from the Pacific Ocean, which again indicates that things are going to plan, and my forecast is looking pretty good at this stage. But again, we need to see this carry through in the next 4 weeks. Just quickly, I got an email the other day about cold outbreaks and snow. Again, we haven't seen much of this sort of stuff in the last couple of years. I do have a theory on it, but it's yet to be proven, which I'll go into in another post in more detail. This is the the Antarctic Oscillation Index. And when it's negative, we generally have cold outbreaks through southern Australia, and when it's positive, we generally have warmer weather. And you can see we did have a cold outbreak at the end of May, and that was that one right there, and it's looking like in the next week or so we will probably see a decent cold outbreak. There's a lot of cold air in the models coming up, producing very sharp cold fronts and strong cut-off lows in our region. Again, the placement is the issue and whereabouts it's going to be, but it's looking like we could have a decent outbreak in the next 7 to 10 days. But we'll keep an eye on that, and of course I'll keep you posted. If you want to keep up with all my stuff, of course, or you got any questions, here's my website, avweatherforecast.com. There's a contact me form, so if you want to just shoot me a question like people do all the time, or if you want to forecast, feel free to drop me a line there. Facebook and Twitter, social media, I'm always posting on Facebook latest updates, as you can see, through the weather feed here. So again, just keep an eye on that, and if you've got any questions in particular regarding the weather, just shoot me a line, and I'll either do a video or a post on Facebook about it. So that's it for this time. We'll catch up there next time.